the femme fatale, or the female Illuminati. I wanted to qualify the work that Michael Tsarian does around the female Illuminati line. And I want to point out again that my perspective is that something other than humans moved into this spaceship Earth, as we might call it, this prism, and caused it to become a prison. The Nog line, or the serpent line, also kind of the draconian empire, has different entities in it, and so do the Orion stars, which are malevolent, and they are currently in charge of this realm as we know it. One of those persons who identifies as Madonna, the Queen of Pop, has been revealed before by people to be part of the female Illuminati, but I want to point out her chart, particularly the Venus cycle in her chart, because as I've indicated in my other videos, Venus is Lucifer, and Venus and all the planets have a dualistic nature. So if you're caught in the duality, you've got to make it either good or evil. And what I would say is Venus, like Mercury, are very dualistic and also kind of hermaphroditic plasma beings that are within the realm at this point. They're new to the realm, particularly Venus, and her introduction seems to have been about 5,000 years ago, coming from Uranus and possibly bouncing off of Jupiter and then moving into the orbit near Mars. And the astronomers' texts, particularly Immanuel Velikovsky's Worlds in Collision, Mars and Venus fought in the sky, and a lot of human sacrifices were caused at that time. But I also believe parasitic invasions happened at that time that were both stellar and had their complementary as above, so below, other kinds of parasites that affected humanity. So I see Venus as a parasite. She is not supposed to be in the system. And all of these planets create geometries, which create time, which create the prison construct of time. So time is the primary bit of the prison here. And we have much shorter lives. And the record shows that the particular blood group AB negative was not here until 900 CE. So we even have a different species here that has been hybridized into the human population. Now, I want to point out again, when I'm talking about the femme fatale, I'm talking about like a mythic energy, but also it comes through those devotees of the star Venus, or Lucifer. And I would say that we're going to look at a chart of Madonna in which she had her major planets and points hit by the Venus star points. And you can look up your own Venus star point to see when a major change may have happened for you. But traditionally, that is how the female Illuminati do their magic. They know the Venus star points. I would suggest that they even incarnate in such a way that those things will make them rise up and become very famous and powerful. But I also want to indicate that I'm going to compare this chart, which Madonna has a domicile lord Sun, and she also has a domicile lord Mercury. And what that means is those planets are in their strongest position. They have all their power to bring about conditions. Mercury is always going to bring about trickster type of templates anyways. So if you have a strong Mercury, you could be tricking yourself. So I was very fierce about that in my last video. Be careful with Mercury. It's hermaphroditic. It's a liar. It's a con artist, and it's definitely full of deceit. And I would say the same with Venus. So we always get this idea that she's like the goddess of love and beauty. What's your desire? But when you make a deal with Venus, just recognize you're making a deal. And what we understand about the femme fatale is certain amounts of sacrifices and deals are struck on particular days in the Venus cycle. Before I get into the female dragon court of the Nagai, the feminine serpent beings, I do want to also acknowledge someone who I share a lot on my Facebook, which is John Trudell. And John Trudell was a male, human, indigenous, actual man who had planets all in very poor condition. His Mars and Saturn are in Cancer, and I actually wrote it down. His Sun and Venus are in Aquarius, and the Sun in Aquarius is the opposite to Leo, so it's a detriment there in Aquarius. His Mercury is in Pisces, which is pretty poor for Mercury, which is great because it makes Mercury behave, but he became a poet and a storyteller. As I said, his Mars and Saturn are in Cancer, which is like the worst possible place for the malefics, which means that he cannot be like super malefic. You see, when they're in a fall or a detriment, the planets cannot bring about their conditions. And that's what you need to know about this, is these people making the deals with the planets, which are plasma beings within the realm, are making deals. And there was a really good comment of someone who did report a deal that was made based on a preying, Preying, in which this entity then strikes back when it wants, its payment back. And the other thing about Trudell was that he had a Moon-Pluto situation. So a lot of women, being the moon, represented as moon, in the magnetics of the moon really affect females. So when you have a Moon-Pluto condition in your chart, it was like his own mother died when he was young, and then his wife, their 3 children, and his mother's wife all died in a house fire in 1979, a suspicious origin that the FBI would not investigate, and they called it an accident. But the FBI itself had a 17,000-page document on John Trudell because he infused this deep belief in the human spirit. And if you read his poetry, he often does try to get you to remember how to be a human. Like, the whole idea here is to not let these entities of the planetary beings, which are interstellar parasites, to take your spirit. So the idea that John was always so dangerous with, right? Why did the FBI need all of these files on him? It was because he talked about the human spirit and that technology and civilization is what's eating the human spirit. And I would absolutely agree. That's why I don't make that many videos, although I have tons of ideas and things to talk to you about. It's just about getting off of the internet. And Claude and I have been planting, mostly Claude, because at this point my arthritis is pretty bad. But it's that time of year when you want to plant all your edible trees, your nut trees, your fruit trees, even your vegetable trees like spinach can be grown as a perennial vegetable. So, that's a whole other conversation, but you can certainly get a session with me just to talk permaculture, and I've said that before. So, and the other thing is that John Trudell was an author, a poet, a political activist, and he says that technology and civilization severs your connection to the spirit, that technology and, quote, civilization is a program that eats the spirit. Which is why I'm really strongly suggesting to you that, if you're going to have a spirit you all life, you get out there in the woods. And I'm making a new schedule for myself. I've had a lot of changes. I'm extremely, extremely happy. And I am going to be walking several miles every morning because that's my meditation. I just walk and enjoy Right now it's raining, which is just so lovely and soft, and it's just being close to nature, which is why I want to start making videos outside so that you can see me outside. So the tribute to John Trudell, who was a male human, he was a human, and you can tell he was a human because basically his planets are in terrible condition. And this is what I have been saying, is the way I figured this out, go way back in my videos like 2 years ago when I figured this out, is I had some female Illuminati line, particularly Italian, that's the line I'm talking about. And I was like, how did you get this? And how are you so gorgeous? And why does everything work out for you? You know, and what is going on here? And the chart was just so amazing. And again, she said she was from a particular DNA line, Italian, female, which are the Nog, the serpent lines, okay? But John Trudell said, quote, "We must be willing in our lifetime to deal with reality. It's not revolution, it's liberation. We want to be free of a value system that's being imposed on us, and liberation means that we ultimately want to be free. But in order for us to be free, we have to assume our responsibility. We must never underestimate our enemy." So he clearly tells that there is something that got in here that is our enemy. And I'm not caught in good or evil because Venus can go both ways, but she's a trickster. Lucifer is a trickster, and so is Hermes, which is Mercury. I'm much better with like Mars and Jupiter, even though Mars happens to be like, you know, the stadium of the football game, of the, you know, warrior conquer isms. But I'm much better with Jupiter and Uranus also. Venus and Mercury are particularly problematic in the chart, and I would say that the Sun as a domicile lord makes a huge egotist, which if you look at Madonna, that is where her Sun is a domicile lord, and it's all in the draconian stars. So anyways, he said our enemy is committed against us 24 hours a day, and they use 100% of their efforts to maintain the status quo. 100% of their efforts go into deceiving us and manipulating us against each other. Human beings, it's time to rise up and remember who we are. That's by John Trudell. So if you don't know John Trudell, you can look him up, look up his poetry and his writings. His name is spelled Trudel, and I believe he was born in Omaha, Nebraska in 1946. So I'm a big fan of John Trudell because he understands your spirit is what they're after. They want to collect your first light when you're born and your second light when you die. And so they've got that whole like wormhole technology to the machine elves, which are absolute tricksters. No one should be going to the white light and the machine elves. So let's look at Madonna's chart, and you can correct me if I have some details that are wrong. She's 5'4". She identifies as female. This is a Nagai, or this is a serpent being. And so I want you to look, because I've drawn in her star points. And we've got this one particularly over here that hit her sun, and this one that hit her Chariklo in 87, also 1986. And that's where she really took off. So I know from associates that I have sung with, particularly I'll name him, Bhagavan Das. When Bhagavan Das and I used to sing together, Madonna consulted with him because he knew a lot of that kind of left-hand path, trickster type of stuff. And he was very into the goddesses, as these female Illuminati are. So when he was consulted by Madonna, Bhagavan Das and I were very close at that time and traveling together. He said that she was way into the Kabbalah. Okay, so the whole Jewish Kabbalah, the whole information about the star systems as they are now, and the DNA as it is now, is part of the Cabal. So she's part of the Cabal, and that's what she studied. Some people call that the Kabbalah. And she was a self-proclaimed queen of pop. Well, this is her Venus star pattern, and she was incarnated so that the Venus hit her Jupiter. The Venus sun cycle hit her own sun. It hit her Chariklo, and then several times over, it is still landing in her house of career, which is Gemini, and also where her Black Moon, Lilith, and Eris are in Aries. So this star point that I've drawn is the human lifespan, because this is another very important thing for you to understand about Venus/Lucifer. Is when Venus/Lucifer came into the system around 5,000 years ago, it changed our lifespan. And I said that, she singed the earth, caused this massive catastrophe, all kinds of new parasites and growth of fungi that were not natural to the system environment, this earth ship that we're in. And so now the Venus cycle is exactly 100 years, and it goes through Gemini, Leo, Libra, Capricorn, and Aries. And it will make this pentagram, which of course is what the Freemasons study. They do the inversion of the pentagram because it is an inverse realm. So this cycle that Venus takes, it makes these star points. And so magnetically, this star point system acts on you. So I would say Venus-Lucifer is your death cycle also. So she's using it to promote immortality. So if you watch some of her current videos, and I think I posted one in the comments, she says she's going to live another 100 years. Very interesting to me that she used that number 100, because 100 is exactly the star point cycle that every human completes. But if you do certain rituals, you know that you can get some longevity. And she may have done the other things like the transgenic hydra, which the transgenic hydra, if you look that up, you can get the National Institute of Health talks about that and several other sources. You can basically mutate your DNA into something else. And if you look at her facial features after her most recent what would you call that? Reconstruction. Or maybe she actually made it look more like her real face. And I was like, oh my gosh, she looks like a snake being. And her eyes are kind of like on the side of her head a little bit now, like really strange. And her lips are like almost like serpentine. And it just like you think that she's going to stick out her tongue. Have a good look, because she looks like that creature in Harry Potter that's actually a snake being with all that plastic surgery. I don't know. But when I looked at her, all I see is like those weird snake eyes at the Vatican. That same kind of shape to her eyes, and her face is like alien looking now. So maybe she is using the transgenic hydra to change herself. And I would be very careful with what you're eating and drinking out there, folks, or putting into your body in other ways, because it's in that. So when I said water everywhere and not a drop to drink, we're talking about some very strange species that can mutate your entire genome. Look up the transgenic hydra. You can't kill it either. So back to this femme fatale. If you study her chart, she was born in such a way where her sun at 23 degrees Leo is at Tiani Draconis. So her sun is right on a Draco star. Yes, the Draco stars are in the constellation of Leo and Virgo. So that when you go to her Mercury and ascendant degree, which her sun is a domicile lord in Leo, it has all its strength, like super egotist draconian. And then her Mercury is smack on another domicile lord, Thuban. Thuban is a very famous Draco star, and her Mercury domicile lord is right there on Thuban. She has some interesting asteroids too. Atropos, because she says in one of her songs that not everyone's going to make it, not everyone's coming to the future, something like that. She has Atropos, also the cutter of the thread, conjunct her Mercury. So she's basically this female Illuminati who is deciding who's coming to the future and who's not going to make it. And then at her IC, so again, that IC is a very private place. The IC is like your origin spot. It is in her 4th house. And there is Erato, which means like erotic, and Nagai, so the erotic serpent being. Boom. Nagai is number 33553, erotic, number 62, and then Sappho, number 80, which Sappho was a philosopher, poet, on her IC, from the island of Lesbos. And we know from the female Illuminati that they might have men on collars and leashes, but ultimately they're lovers of women. So I don't want to say much more about that. But she does have the asteroid Dyke, number 99, conjunct her Venus. And her Venus is at 0 degrees, 32 minutes Leo. So I'm going to just share a Sabian symbol that one of my students, Chris, shared with me. The Sabian symbol there is 0 degrees, 32 minutes Leo, a case of apoplexy, managing the fiery life force, feelings of self-importance, ego's self-love becomes overblown and gives rise to apoplectic anger. So again, that Leo, it's that ego drive. It's the self-importance. That's what Leo is known for. And Rujar, Dane Rujar, who also does Sabian symbols, says, blood rushes to a man's head as his vital energies are mobilized under the spur of ambition. So that's Dane Rujar's take on that degree. And Sabian symbols are kind of like tarot card readings. They have all 360 degrees in the wheel. They're only important to you, just like asteroids, if they're conjunct a planet. So like I wouldn't use Dyke just anywhere in the chart. Everyone has Dyke somewhere. Of the 44,000 asteroids that are available, everyone has it. But it's only important if it's conjunct a major planet. And in this case, it is conjunct Venus. So we all have Sappho. We all have Erato. And you can use astro.com, put in whole signs, house chart, system, geocentric, and go down to additional objects. And they're all in alphabetical order. So in terms of this entity, female snake being, she also has Algol, the star Algol, which is like the blinking eye of Medusa, at her Nessus in the 9th house. And Algol is known as a pretty fierce, feminine, femme fatale type of planet. So we're looking at Madonna as definitely part of the female Illuminati. And you can look at it yourself. If you look at her songs from Starlight, Starbright, the first star I see tonight, and she says that it helps to take all her darkness away. She's talking to Venus. That is the song to Venus. And then there was another one about Cherish, and she had her like a video with a little black child with a beautiful afro, like long hair. And she was like almost like weirdly intimate with him. He was like kissing her, but then he looked like he was trying to run away from her. So when you listen to the words, it's like, try to run away, I won't let you. Try to run away, I won't let you. And one of my friends said that she was known as a human trafficker and was part of various African projects, orphanages, and that she took these children without parent permission. So you do your own research. I am just the astrologer. Okay. I'm reporting on a chart. But if you have Venus star points, and we all do, so we all have Venus star points, but do they line up on your Jupiter? Do they line up on your sun? Do they line up on your Chiriclo? Do they line up to your house of career again and again and again? No. This Nagai, this female serpent being, which is not a human, but she is a 5'4", 5'4" little woman from Italy. But I've always said the Italians are the, like the Orsini family. They're the popes, they're the stars, they're the serpent line, they're the Nagai. So there you have it on that. And I also wanted to talk about Glinda, the Good Witch. Oh, darn it. I forgot my little starry pentagram. I should run in the house and get it, but I was going to show you this little starry pentagram. So how do we know Glinda's a good witch? How do we know Glinda's the good witch? She floats in on this like pinkish orange orb, and then she shows up in this like pinkish orange gown with her pinkish orange hair, and then she has her little pentagram on her staff. Glinda is Lucifer, my dears. If you can decode the female Illuminati, you're looking at a mythical character, Glinda, the Good Witch. And what happens? She floats in this pinkish orange orb, and then she tells this little girl, oh, good, you killed the bad witch. You killed her by landing your house. Are you a witch too? So she tells the girl she's a murderer, and then she tries to get her to join the cult of the witches. And then she says, oh, but you're so long from home. Let me just take this murdered witch's red shoes and steal them from the one who has just been sacrificed and put them on you, because you must be a good witch too. So to me, there you've got it. You've got that whole femme fatale Luciferian trickster stuff. She's good, right? And she's trying to get this little Dorothy character to be part of her club with the Munchkins, right? And go on this yellow brick road. So then she's going to send her down the yellow brick road. You get it? And you got to wear these shoes of this dead witch because we want to make sure you're part of the cult. And so she sends her on this big wild goose chase to find this wizard who is totally imposter material anyways and can't even manage his own weather balloon or whatever he's trying to fly. And if you look into the deep mythology of that writer, he was an occultist. He was from the 1800s. I think he was Scottish, Irish Scot. The writer of The Wizard of Oz wrote many, many books, and he was using all these mythologies. So to me, Glinda is Lucifer, because the other witch, the one that gets drowned by water, who's very upset that her sister got toasted by the murderous house that landed on her, that to me is Ereshkigal. And if you don't understand the duality of Venus, Inanna, Ishtar, and Ereshkigal, also Isis, all of that mythology, I think I did a video on it called Inanna's Descent, I Am Guilty Too. But basically, Ereshkigal is the dark sister to Venus. And in Venus's cycle, her descent, where she's not visible, and then she conjoins the sun and then pops up as a morning star, during that descent, she meets her dark sister, and her dark sister says, you are guilty too. And she hangs her on a meat hook and leaves her to die. So Venus is like a death thing. Remember, she was born of the castration of Uranus and came up out of the sea foam. So we're talking about something that has to go into that dark side Ereshkigal. And if you're born with a Venus retrograde, or a stationed Venus looking retrograde, you're going to go through 40-some years of extreme darkness. So Venus retrograde has to descend through the 7 gates down into the underworld to meet her dark sister, where she is hung on a meat hook and does not get to rise until I think it's 43 years later. And that's really tough. If you have a Venus retrograde in your chart, or by progression Venus retrograde, you can have some very dark days, very deep descent, and being left for dead on a meat hook. So just that, like, whatever Madame Blavatsky, which I shared her quote, has to say about this stuff in Isis Unveiled, remember, Madame Blavatsky is a female Illuminati too. So when she's writing, oh, she's really Lakshmi and she's really Isis and she's really lovely, and the seafarers all, looked for the morning star to direct themselves to which way was east, because the morning star Venus rises before the sun. Oh, the mariners. And to me, when I read all that gushy, loving stuff about Lucifer, I'm just going, oh, Madame Blavatsky is a female Illuminati too. So let me just go to my page, because I want to read to you what Madame Blavatsky says about Venus. And I don't know if I have enough internet out here to do that, but I did share it on my page in the community discussion group. All of that like super sickly, gross stuff about Venus was written by Blavatsky. And you can read Isis Unveiled. I was like so disgusted by all this goddess worship and her trying to defend Venus. So let's go back to Jeffrey Dahmer's chart, okay? There's Jeffrey Dahmer with the strongest Venus possible in Taurus, the ruler of his ascendant Libra. And he ate his persons that he loved. So there's Lucifer, that's Venus. And a lot of people are upset with me that I'm talking about these planetary gods as if they're evil. Folks, they're dualistic. It's not like I'm getting stuck in good and evil. It's that they bring about conditions that can be like cannibalism, rapists. A Venus-Saturn conjunction can be a pedophile, depending on how that's located in the chart. So these are conditions that happen here, and then again, those gods get to experience themselves through you. Who's buying that shit? I mean, to me, if you're making deals to come back here and be a star, be careful. Because what deal has the Queen of Pop made about this? And then when I looked up, Glinda the Good Witch, there was one PhD writer about this. And here she's taking this young woman who doesn't know where she is. She just landed in this weird realm. And to me, all of us are Dorothy. To me, all of us are Dorothy. Like Glinda the Good Witch is pretending to be good, Lucifer, but she's sending us on this crazy trail to some wizard who has no idea what he's doing. And who's God? The dog, Toto. So that's my super quick analysis. I know other people have analyzed the Wizard of Oz, but to me, Toto is a cairn terrier. And I've seen another very good, like non-dual video on this. And Toto is cairn, meaning like the megalithic structures of Ireland and Scotland. Terrier, which is terrier, or like the territory, or terra, or tara, the land. So Toto is a very particular kind of dog. And then when you get into Dorothy, or the door to Thea, or theology, or any of that kind of stuff about what are we doing here? We're in this imaginary holographic spaceship Earth system environment with some bizarre plasma beings that are sending us down these golden roads and trying to tell us that we saved the Munchkins and that we should wear these shoes and just go find the wizard. To me, it's all crazy. And you get on these Monty Python adventures with like the flying monkeys trying to get you and everything. That's what this place is. So, I mean, that is a really adept telling of Venus, Lucifer, which is Glinda. Madonna is another really good example, like Blavatsky, of this queen of something where she's writing songs and she's whatever Trudell said, 24 hours a day, 100% of their efforts are to maintain the status quo and to deceive us and manipulate us against each other. So the other thing John Trudell said about this invader or enemy is that we need to be responsible to liberate ourselves from it, and do not be tricked by these planetary gods. These things are not holy. They are interstellar parasites, and you can decide by the outcomes they bring in a chart. If we look at the outcomes that Madonna brings, yeah, I mean, she's got a loaded first house where she can totally be self-centered, like material security. So Virgo, where her Mercury and her moon are, and she has Horus, Isis, and Osiris all conjunct. So she's playing out this Isis role. She really is playing the Isis role. And I bet you she does all kinds of bizarre resurrection, Osirian mystery stuff to bring about the Horus, the sacred child. So if you don't know, Isis is not a good one, folks, either. So Isis, Venus, Lucifer, they can bring about very dangerous conditions, and invoking one's own name like Isis does to create the holy child. The Horus, I'm sure Madonna invokes the name of the Madonna, and she does a lot of ritual magic. So I told you I was going to talk to you about ritual magic. For me, be careful about making deals with these plasma beings, these planetary gods, because they want sacrifice in return, okay? Hermes, Mercury, and Venus, Lucifer, they want something back. So don't think that you're not going to be hung on a meat hook and left for dead when you meet the dark sister Ereshkigal, which is the other side to Venus, okay? So if you're, on the left-hand path and you think Venus, Lucifer is great, why don't you just summon and talk to the dark sister Ereshkigal? And maybe you'll find out that you have to pay the price of going through 7 gates of hell into the underworld and being left to rot. Then you'll understand the real nature of Venus, Lucifer, my dears. Okay? So I hope that gets you going. A lot of people want sessions. I'm finally going to start drawing charts again, but I'm not taking sessions, as I said, until mid-March, but people did want to hear from me. And also, when you have your session, have some idea of what you want from me, because I can read anything. I can do your Venus star points. I can find out why you had a death experience when you were 13. That's called a retrospective chart, where we look back and do the transits or the events of that time for you. Know what you're asking me. If you just want to be rich and the queen of pop like Madonna, you have to get born with a chart like that. So it's not like I can direct you towards that. But also, my sessions comparatively compared to other astrologers are very inexpensive. Most astrologers who are of my quality charge well over $400 a session. So people who are asking me for discounts, do you know how much time and research I have to do to draw that chart, to draw all of those transits in, write the dates down, write the names of the asteroids, look through 44,000 asteroids. So if there's a particular asteroid, you have to tell me. And again, do not write big, long emails to me. The National Security Agency reads all the emails, and they're reading your private information to me. So there we have it. I hope that helps you with the femme fatale to understand these female Illuminati are not human women. They are serpent beings from the Nagai, often Italian. Definitely that Orsini group is like the controller of the black nobility, if you want to call it that. And they are far, far above the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, these Italian Nog beings. Okay, so I'm going to say hello, good to see you again, and bye-bye for now.